Welcome, everyone, to this 2025 free process work webinar from the world of neuroscience and resonance and from sarahpayton.com, the website that I've created that we're using as a place to begin to study and practice a way of being with brains that makes brains cozier and sweeter places to be. Tonight, we'll be doing a lottery for folks who will be able to do at least one process work session, perhaps two. The process work is in a particular way of using language to be with brains so that they become easier places for us to live in. The thing that creates neural structure that makes brains easy to live in is being accompanied. So however it is that we find ways to become accompanied, and there are many modalities of therapy in which we can be accompanied and have a real sense of embodied accompaniment by other humans. But one of the ways to be with brains that are experiencing intrusive memories, shame spirals, and so on, is to use resonant language to talk to them. So resonant language is language that has specifically been found to speak to the right hemisphere, which is the part of the brain that doesn't get organization and structure if we live in a family where emotions are not really talked about or resonated with. If no one really is able to say, oh, yes, your emotional experience makes sense to me. And is it like this for you? And oh, it's like that for you. This kind of a responsive, warm curiosity about emotional experience is something that's very simple to talk about, but is surprisingly difficult to do because we get pulled into the longing to give advice every time we open our mouths, just about every time we open our mouths. And advice, unfortunately, for humans, I mean, it would be nice if we were made so that advice actually helped us. Advice actually, it turns out, is quite stressful for humans to receive rather than supportive for humans to receive. So we will take a look tonight at what happens to brains when they're held with resonance. And in particular, tonight, we're thinking about what is the stamp that the person who was our father, or as we'll see, second parent, has put on our brain. And how can we be with that stamp in new ways so that we get to appreciate our Father for the beauty of his gifts and not remain trapped in the same limitations and brain habits that he lived with. So we'll look forward to exploring this. I'll start by having Jaya speak aloud in just a moment. Then I'll do some slides about the concepts we're working with both a sense of the influence of the father and the broken father field. And then we'll do a lottery and we'll pull at least one, perhaps two names out of the hat and do some process work. And then at the end, we'll take questions. So Jaya, would you like to say hello to everyone?
Hi, welcome everyone. I'll be here to support with any kind of technical issues you may have. And I'll be also compiling the lottery. So if as you're listening, you know that you would like to be one of the people included in the lottery, you can send me a message and let me know. Please know that this is being recorded and it will be on YouTube. So we want to make sure that whoever volunteers feels willing and comfortable to share your work. And if you have any kind of technical issues or errors, you can send them my way and I will help you to troubleshoot them as well. And I'll say more about questions when we get toward the end, since we're going to be saving those. But I'm also a resource for asking your questions. So we'll circle back around to that later.
Wonderful. And I have a request that during the time when I'm doing the process work, the only thing you would use the chat for is to name needs met for you or gifts that you're receiving from the work being done by the person, because it is so vulnerable for the person doing the demo to be it's both so powerful and so vulnerable to be receiving one-on-one support in a very large fishbowl. So Jaya, are you complete in this moment?
Yeah, I think what I'll do during the process work, I'll turn off the chat. You'll only be able to send me messages. And then when we're getting toward the end, I'll open it up so that whatever has come up for you, you'll have space to be able to share it. But it
And
will
and at the end, we'll solicit your needs met and gifts received for the person who did the work so that they know that they're not alone. Yeah. Okay. So I'll start with our slide deck, which is not showing up. 1 second here. Let me just pull it up. Hmm. There it is. So, clearing the body of blame, healing our broken father field, a free process work webinar. And there are 3 P's when we think about fathering and the job that fathers have. Um, and those 3 P's are provision, protection, and play. And we're living in this very funny time period. These are the three these are the 3 P's for nurturing parenting, interestingly enough. Um, we're living in a time where the metaphors that we have about fathers and the heads of political systems are of huge importance, because the way that our political system has evolved with progressives and conservatives, what we discover um, is that the progressives have evolved into an idea that the nurturing parent is the most effective and best parent. And in fact, neuroscience actually votes on this question, and neuroscience is very much in favor of the idea that the 3 P's are quite important, and that the father, the nurturing father, is really dang supportive for good, solid brain growth and secure attachment and being able to have an easy way finding our way in the world. So that's the nurturant father model. And then we've also got the strict father model, where the strict father has a family structured. This is the work of George Lakoff. For those of you who are going, this sounds like George Lakoff. It is. It has a family structured around a strong, dominant father, and that could be the government, and assumes that the children or citizens need to be disciplined to be made into responsible adults in terms of morality and self-financing. And once the children are adults, the father should not interfere with their lives, and the government should stay out of the business of those in society who have proved their responsibility. As opposed to the nurturing father model, where both mothers and fathers work to keep essentially good children safe from things that harm them, like pollution and social injustice and poverty and disease. So, wow, we are in the middle of a metaphorical struggle of epic proportions about what kind of metaphor of father we want to be in relationship with on a system-wide, society-wide, even a global level. And we're also in tonight's webinar looking very personally at what happens to our brains when we begin to find our Father's essential self. And the essential self of any being is always a nurturing being. So this is, and somebody's asking, I can't see the slides. I'm talking to you directly right now without the slides. I'll put the slides back on now. I didn't have George Lakoff's material in the slides, so I'll share those. So the 3 P's of fathering: provision, protection, and play. I love this material. Mothers are not better or more important than fathers. The second parent forges the expectations a child has for how they will be met in the world. This is a very small sentence. This is of huge importance to us. We'll come back to this concept. Does the father's gender matter? No, not at all. As far as influences on children are concerned, very little about the gender of the parent is important. The characteristics of the father as a parent, rather than the characteristics of the father as a male adult, are most significant. So overall, it's better to have 2 supportive parents than only 1 supportive parent. But if the child has only one, the effects of the father's supportiveness and the mother's supportiveness are equivalent. An analysis, a research analysis of outcomes at age 5 showed that as children get a little older, not just as when they're infants and toddlers, but even by the time they're 5, the sex of the parent is inconsequential. The first parent really structures the way that the child is in relationship with themselves. And the second parent really gives the child a sense of how they're going to interact with the world. So if there's only one parent, they do both. And it doesn't matter what gender they are. It also doesn't matter what gender the second parent is. You can have 2 moms, and the second parent is the father. You can have 2 dads, and the first parent is the mother, and the second parent is the father. Sensitive fathering, responding to, talking to, scaffolding, teaching, and encouraging their children to learn, predicts children's social, emotional, cognitive, and linguistic achievements, just as sensitive mothering does. Highly involved fathers. Children with highly involved fathers were characterized by increased cognitive competence, increased empathy, fewer sex stereotyped beliefs, and a more internal locus of control. More internal locus of control means you're making your own decisions. You're not leaning into a set of rules or laws to tell you what you can do and can't do. You know what you want to do and what you don't want to do. Parental warmth, nurturance, and closeness are what matter. And when we think about protection, our fathers make us safe and they help us negotiate conflict. And what's so cool about fathers is they set up our ease with play. Most dads actually play with their kids every day and engage in more physical play, even with younger children. For babies, this might be picking them up and helping them use their limbs, while for toddlers, it may be through activities like tickling, chasing, and giving piggyback rides. When fathers synchronize with their children, they direct infants toward the environment. Isn't this interesting? It's starting in infancy, this orientation toward the world. When fathers synchronize with their children, they're more physical, and their synchrony contains quick peaks of positive arousal, which are otherwise known as play. And these experiences of quick peaks of positive arousal that arise in play provide a very sweet structure for growing brains. Young children whose fathers play with them from a very young age have an easier time controlling their behavior and emotions later on. Fathers' recollections of their own childhood relationships play an important role in shaping paternal sensitivity. Researchers have shown that men who had loving and secure relationships with their parents were more sensitive, attentive, and involved than fathers who recalled poor relationships. So these pieces of research really begin to inform our inquiry into whether or not our fathers were able to turn toward the world with us, and whether they were able to provide for us, and whether they were able to play with us. And so here we begin to already see the transgenerational impact of warm, sensitive parenting on generation after generation. And one of the questions we get to ask with this work is, who would our fathers have been if they had received sensitive fathering from their own fathers? But often, when our fathers and grandfathers were touched by trauma, they can't give us provision, protection, and play. And instead, we receive a broken father field from them. Sometimes we are ignored. Sometimes we are held in contempt and insulted and blamed. So there's so much that happens with fathers and with uh, the impact of trauma. But let's look at the broken father field and the way that we take our father's concepts about the world into us. I'm going to do a little bit of a drawing for you here. And so here we have a person. This is a person, one of us in this webinar, who's here thinking about our fathers. I don't draw people, I draw little bird people with feet. Okay, so here's one of us. Here is the father of one of us. So what happens is that when we have a mother, as most of us do, but some of us don't, when we have a mother, I'll put a mother here in a pink color, we bring inside ourselves the pattern of how we care for ourselves. We bring in these neural circuits between prefrontal cortex and amygdala. This comes from our mother. How we self-regulate, how we care for ourselves, how our whole darned bodies function cellularly in every cell of our being is based on what happens with our moms. Our fathers, though, have a different impact. It's like our fathers create, what they give us is they give us an integration between our sense of self and our view of the outer world. So when we receive the stamp from our fathers of how they see us, if our father is traumatized, the stamp of the way that they see us can be painful, terrifying, debilitating. If our father gives us the sense that we are not worth providing for, that we are not worth protecting, that we are not worth playing with, then what we anticipate is that the world will not want us. that the world will not want our full participation and the world will not want our contributions. So the experience that we have, that we bring inside from our fathers being a broken father field, is about the judgments that our fathers had about us that stabilized them in their trauma. And I have more about this in the slides. We may come back to this drawing, but I wanted to give you a sense of the ways in which we can be touched and changed and sort of given a burden that we then, the riddle of resolving our fathers within us is a riddle of claiming our own worth and our competence and the idea that we have a gift that the world wants from us and that our voice is of interest and it's necessary. That's the work that we have to do as we're coming out of these broken father places. And I'll come back to the slides now for a moment. So our self-view can become smashed. Here's a quick review of the broken field concept now in writing. We had started to talk about this with the drawing, but I'm going to tell you it, and here it's in writing to help a little bit too in terms of tracking this concept. We carry our significant people within us. For example, our internalized fathers. So if we look back at our drawing and we did a blow up of this person's brain, then what we would see is that inside of their brain, they are carrying a father. They've got a father inside their brain that's thinking things about them. We all have, whatever parents we have inside our brains, and they have opinions about us. And when they have negative opinions about us, what they're doing is not seeing anything that's true. They're supporting their own nervous system stability by using contempt or dismissal, predatory aggression, the dopamine that is sort of like being a little kid and trying to get your bicycle going fast enough that it's not going to tip over. So all of us have within us a father. And if the father sees us in a negative light, then we see ourselves through his eyes. And we see ourselves as being bad or wrong or incompetent or not enough. As we do the work that we're going to be learning tonight, we get to release that idea, and we actually get to change our internal concept of the father from being a negative force or a judging force. We get to change that to beginning to discover our father's essential self. So we kind of get to rediscover who our father would have been without the trauma and carry that father in our brains instead of the father who has hurt us so much. So we carry our significant people within us. For example, our internalized fathers. We also carry their negative ideas about us within us. My kid is incompetent and can't take care of themselves. They use those negative ideas to regulate themselves. I, George, solemnly swear to my essential self that I will believe my kid is incompetent and can't take care of themselves in order to see myself as strong and not have to feel my own self-doubt and mourning, no matter the cost to my kid. That's not every father's vow. That's one possibility. I just wanted to give you a sense of the possibilities. So we all use our negative ideas about others and ourselves to regulate ourselves. When we have a negative idea, it gives us a spurt of dopamine. When we have a judgment, it gives us a spurt of dopamine. When we experience contempt, it gives us a spurt of dopamine. When we dismiss someone else, it gives us a spurt of dopamine. We get to regulate ourselves and give ourselves energy by being judgment-filled beings. And that's what we do if we have not had any resonance, if we have not had the experience of internalizing a nurturing parental field that holds us with care and gives us energy and balance. So, we all use our negative ideas about others and ourselves to regulate ourselves. We sabotage ourselves by staying loyal to being used as regulators for our significant people, for our fathers. I will believe I am incompetent in order to support my father and make sure he survives, no matter the cost to myself. I will be incompetent in order not to compete with my father and in order not to outstrip my father, in order to express my love and care for him. All kinds of possibilities for self-sabotage. Happily, once we see what we are doing, we can release ourselves from these contracts and offer ourselves new invitations. I release this contract and I give myself the blessing to see that I can't save my father, no matter how much I wish I could. And since we carry our people within us, we can release their negative unconscious contracts and let go of these negative ideas. Speaking as my father's essential self, I could say, George is not my father's name. I'm making up this particular father. George, I release you from this contract and give you my blessing to see your kid as whole and resourced and competent. In doing this, we're updating our internalized fathers. So what happens when we carry an internalized broken field? Anxiety, depression, negative self-image, the inability to believe in our own worth or existence, a deep confusion about who we are and what we're here to do, a nagging sense of hopelessness about ever experiencing belonging, an expectation of never being seen, a persistent sense of not being able to contribute, never receiving acknowledgement for our efforts, patterns of being repeatedly scapegoated in group after group, and more. So what we'd like to do now is to stop for some questions and also do the lottery to find out who would like to do a little bit of work with these broken father experiences.
So if you would just real briefly before I come to the question that was in the chat, if you would like to be in that demo and you have not yet let me know by offering yourself up to the demo. You're consenting for it to be recorded and put on Sarah's YouTube. So please only volunteer if you're comfortable with that. And then there was a question in the chat, Sarah, from a couple of different people. May I read that, or would you like to look through yourself?
Yeah, go ahead and read it to me.
So Grace writes, can you say a bit more to help me differentiate the difference between mother and father figure if gender is not necessarily the factor?
Oh, that's a beautiful question. So the way you can tell who was your mother and who was your father, since it's not entirely dependent on gender, is who took most care of you in terms of day-to-day emotional responsiveness. Who was the person who was most likely to pick you up and clean off your cuts and put on a Band-Aid and give you kisses and offer you some kind of relationship and sweetness on a minute by minute, day by day caregiving experience. Um, and the way you can tell who is your father is who was thinking about your interface with the world. Might not have been anybody. It might be that nobody was thinking about your interface with the world. Um, but um, but but there may be someone who was thinking, oh, um, What classes would be good classes for my child to take? Oh, what extracurricular activities would my particular child like or would help my particular child? Oh, what, how do I support my child in feeling confident and moving out into the world? And this can sometimes be with play that these kinds of supports happen. Without us even knowing it, the play can support confidence um, and engagement and the expectation of being met. So with our mothers, how are we meeting ourselves and how are we met by our closest, most intimate people? And with our fathers, how are we expecting to be met by the world? Yeah. So Grace and Dominic, you can let me know if I did okay there.
And a couple of people are wondering, what if we didn't have a parent that took care of us emotionally? What if both parents weren't warm?
Then we need resonance. We need to come across it as adults and begin to receive it. And like the work that we'll do tonight is work that begins to compensate for that missing warmth and that missing support and that missing guidance. As we receive resonance, we begin to change our brains. Changing the brain does not happen overnight. There are little things that happen overnight when we have moments of insight. So the work we do tonight will have moments of insight where brains are changed quite profoundly. But the growth of the neurons that we need to have in place to be able to kind of feel really deeply, soundly supported in the world, the growth of those neurons takes about 8 to 10 years. So we'll get to do the insight part tonight, and we'll be able to make a start to growing neurons. But it's quite a thing to to begin to change the brain so profoundly as resonance does change brains. Yeah. Um, and then I see that MJ asked, can oppositional defiant behavior be an expression of trying to be free of an unconscious contract? Absolutely. Absolutely. And and then And then Robin writes, can you speak to parents, fathers leaving and it feeling like abandonment? And can you speak about absent fathers? Um, when fathers leave, then all of a sudden it's left to the mother to do both roles. And it does feel like abandonment. We are losing someone. It does impact us very profoundly. And we can have an experience of absolutely missing this element of being supported to move into the world. And part of what we internalize as we internalize our father is not just their view of us, but we also internalize their view of the world. So, for example, in our drawing, in our drawing, we have these black lines that are part of the way the father sees the world. If the father sees the world with depression and hopelessness and helplessness, then we're carrying the Father's view of the world. It's not a view that he has of us. It's not this broken field piece that we were looking at over here in the blow up of the brain. This is the view that the Father carries about the world. And if the Father carries a negative view about the world, that's also a contract that the Father has that we carry within us that isn't about us, but is about the world and impacts us. So if we have any luck tonight, we'll get to see at least one of those contracts being released as well. But so in terms of fathers leaving and it feeling like abandonment and absent fathers, yes, this has a big impact on us. Yeah. And then I'm going to just check with Jaya and find out how we are on the lottery.
I think we're pretty good. I'm just adding possibly one more person, two more people.
Okay, while you add, I'll do another question.
Yeah, and I'll put some questions that are coming to me privately, just in a little note for after the demo.
Oh, excellent. Thank you so much, Jaya. Katya says, can you say more about self-other judgment as self-regulating? It seems that receiving conscious unconscious judgment is activating. It's absolutely activating. Um, it creates a flow of cortisol. It often creates a sense of shame to be judged, and it impacts our health and well-being. If we have to live with somebody who has contempt for us, our wounds heal more slowly. We recover from colds and flus. It takes 3 days longer to recover from colds and flus if we have to live, for example, with a contemptuous partner who is contemptuous of us. So it absolutely impacts us receiving judgment. But for the person making the judgment, they get to dump their cortisol. They get to, whatever kind of stress they have, they get to get rid of by being judgmental about somebody else. And you've probably seen those old cartoons where the boss yells at the father and the father yells at the mother and the mother yells at the child and the child yells at the dog. And this is one of the cycles of families that happens if there's no resonance in the family. Because resonance is badly needed to stop those cycles of verbal violence and contempt. So when I get to be judgmental of somebody, then I get to step away from any mourning or sadness that I have, or my feelings of helplessness about not being able to contribute. And I get to help myself feel good. It feels good to judge people. It feels good to be sarcastic. It feels good to be contemptuous. It feels good to be dismissing. And it's an effective brain regulation strategy. Yeah. 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 And uh, Aru writes, could siblings get confused as our parents if they are a decade older? Even if they're not a decade older, they can be confused as our parents. There can be very interesting entanglements between parents and siblings, and we can internalize the way a sibling sees us contemptuously. And that can either be a broken parent field that we're taking in, or it can also be a broken sibling field. And Belle says, what about the single mom with a divorced or deceased father? Do they have to play both roles? Yes, yes. And then, yeah. And then Christy and Fred say, what happens when both mother and father were both givers of broken fields and nurturers? There's just complicated work to do to heal. Yeah. Jaya, tell me, how are we doing? Should I keep going with questions?
Um, I'm okay to run. It looks like I'm okay to run the lottery right now. Just
Okay.
okay. Yeah. I'll go ahead and do it now.
Thank you.
Private message I received. So the person came out for the first demo is MJ.
MJ. Oh, MJ, hello. So, MJ, tell me a little bit about how it's going tonight, hearing this information and thinking about your experience and what led you to put your name in for a lottery. Let's see, it looks like I need to get you to unmute.
You should be able to now that you have a request.
Now I can. Great. Thank you. Wow. So I had a feeling to do this, and I was like, no, no, no. Ever since I watched the mother video, and yeah, I feel like I don't really have a good handle on the father field, and my relational world with him. Um, and I mean, I have story and some understanding, but I'm hoping you have good questions that will help me get to.
How are you interfacing with the world and your mission and purpose in being alive?
Yeah, I think it's a lot of hiding.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And and I asked that question about the oppositional because there's it feels like there's elements where I'm like, okay, I'm gonna break free of whatever this script, because I'm familiar with the script from way back when, the boys camp and the TA type script. This feels like a more sophisticated. Um, so my father was he felt very uninterested in me as a person and uninterested in, and I think he maybe saw the world as, yeah, I'm not sure what would be helpful to understand the.
I think that's a very good start.
Okay, excellent.
Is the understanding both that you had to hide and that that it was that your father was uninterested in you. So,
Well, it was a contract he had with my mom to it was part of the relational dynamic.
uh-huh. If you hid, who did it benefit?
Him.
Uh-huh. How did it benefit him when you hid?
Um, because he didn't have to, um, well, I would say two things based on kind of the what you've shared is that he didn't have to deal with his own internal worldview and unfulfilled places,
Oh,
and that it also didn't create conflict with my mother, who wanted more attention from him. And when I got it, it was,
oh, so you benefited both your mother and your father by hiding. Because if you didn't compete, then your mom got more of your dad's attention.
right. Yes,
Yeah.
yes. But
Yeah.
it was yes.
Mm. So I'm just going to take a little moment because I notice my heart aching in response to what the little one was trying, I mean, the same possible riddle that this little one was trying to manage, that she needed to stay invisible in order to support her father and mother's well-being, both of them. And she needed to, I'm just gonna close my eyes for a little minute. She needed to stay invisible. And at the same time, she was aching to be seen. And she was really impacted by not being seen. Does it seem like I understand a little bit?
And being seen internally feels dangerous.
Yeah, yeah,
So I know that push pull in me where it's what I want, but
yeah.
when it comes, it's like it fragments me.
Oh, then the words that fragments me, um, kind of stop me in my tracks, like a little mini secret explosion inside of my chest. And I wonder if it's anything like that for the little one.
What I'm really in touch with, Sarah, is that this was just I really logically adapted to the situation. So it's hard to resonate with what the experience was because
It just was.
it just was. And it was the logical, you
It's
know,
the only thing that made,
clever
yeah,
behavior.
yeah, yeah.
And so I think that I'm still understanding the contract process, but it was contract with myself too, because it was like, this is the way to go. And
Yeah, what a good idea.
so, yeah, so it's keeping me from feeling.
Yeah, yeah. And just tell me whether it touches the little one within you at all if we say, "Thank you, MJ, for finding a way to survive this."
Yes, it does.
Oh, good. Good. Yeah, she needs some appreciation for her finding a successful strategy in a really difficult situation.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay. So I'm just going to since we're doing there are contracts opening before us, contracts you made with yourself, contracts you would have made with your mother, but I'm bringing my attention to the father because that's our focus. So is there then within your father some kind of contract that would be something like, oh, what's your father's first name?
Jerome.
Jerome. Something like, I, Jerome, solemnly swear to my essential self that I will not let my daughter MJ exist for me.
I will not be bothered with her.
I will not be bothered with my daughter MJ.
And not exist is true, but it's not be bothered feels more like,
I love the words that most resonate for you and the little
yeah,
one.
yeah.
Is it, I will not be bothered with my daughter in order to keep my wife calm and happy?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What else is there? If you become Jerome for us for a little moment and you say, I, Jerome, will not be bothered with my daughter in order to,
Not have to um not have to like look at myself or think about resonance or or it's to know myself.
so I will not be bothered with my daughter in order not to have to look at myself or know myself.
Yeah.
Yeah. No matter the cost to MJ. Yeah.
It's a big cost. I can feel the heaviness of that cost.
Oh, wow. As you feel the heaviness of the cost, does it feel a little bit like you're speaking as Jerome and that he can feel that heaviness?
I don't resonate with him feeling it as
Okay.
heavy.
Okay. So, what we want to do now is find out whether you have a sense of being able to access his essential self. If you have any sense of a shred or a wisp or a flame of soul that was in the deepest, centralmost, untraumatized part of Jerome.
I would say yes.
Okay. So that's who we want to talk to now. And so you'll represent the essential self of Jerome, and I'll say, Essential self of Jerome, did you hear the vow that Jerome made about not being bothered with his daughter, MJ?
Yes.
How do you, the essential self of Jerome, feel about this vow?
I if it's tragic.
Would you be willing then to release Jerome from this vow, to say, Jerome, I release you from this vow, I revoke this contract?
Yes.
Do you want to say that aloud, or is it enough that I said it?
Um I can say it. It might, Jerome, I release you from this vow.
And I revoke this contract.
and I revoke this contract.
And instead, Jerome, I give you my blessing to see MJ as.
And instead, Jerome, I give you my blessing to see MJ as something wonderful and that will bring something to you,
Oh, that's a nice.
add to your life.
Oh, and is it okay if we say someone that is something?
What?
Is it okay if
Someone?
we say
Yeah,
someone when?
someone.
Yes.
Someone.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So now we'll let Jerome and Essential Jerome go and we'll just check in with MJ and see how is it how is it to be you in this moment, MJ?
Um, there's a sense of, it's like I feel a little reoriented and, just kind of really curious of, because this had been operating, just as I said, very logically, very like locked in. Um, and yeah, I'm just gonna, watch the tape and, yeah, I guess the one thing I can say is that, like, when I was in the broken father field, there was some the anger that was coming up around just the just all of this, and I think that that's life energy that I'm still feeling kind
Oh,
of moving.
yeah. Yeah, that makes total sense. When you think about being seen, does it feel any less dangerous or does it feel just as dangerous?
No, it definitely does feel less dangerous.
Oh, that's very good. That's
Yeah,
very
yeah,
wonderful.
yeah.
Wonderful. And while I have you here, let's just check for one of those contracts about just how your father saw the world. How did
Hmm.
Jerome see the world? I, Jerome, solemnly swear to my essential self that I will see the world as.
Um, not um, not available to me as I am.
As you say that, I get like a acid wash up and down my esophagus. Not of it. So I, Jerome, solemnly swear to my essential self to see the world as not available to me as I am, in order to.
To not have to grieve, grieve.
Disappointments and heartaches.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
Exactly.
No matter the cost to myself.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now we're going to see what Jerome's essential self thinks of this contract. So here we are, folks. This is the contract that affects us because it's about the way that our Father saw the world, and we carry that within us. But it's not about us, but it's about the world. So there's something very sweet in the release of this, if it's possible. Let's find out what Jerome's essential self thinks about or feels about this contract to see the world as not available to Jerome as he is.
Mm.
What does the essential self say?
Who else would it be available to?
No,
It can only be available to you.
what a wonderful response. I kind of flush with pleasure with that one. So, Jerome's essential self, would you please say, Jerome, I release you from this contract. I revoke this vow.
Jerome, I release you from this contract. I revoke this vow.
And instead, I give you my blessing to see the world as.
Available to you. Instead, I give you my blessing to see the world as available and desirous of you or waiting for you or,
Oh,
yeah.
wonderful. Oh, my goodness. Okay, now we'll let Jerome and his essential self go, and we'll check back in with MJ. How is that for you that we got to do that little piece?
I mean, that honestly, that flip there was profound. I'm like,
Oh,
oh my, because I was like remembering what this meant. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's
oh,
it.
oh, I'm so glad we got. What a pleasure for me. I'll share my needs met and gifts received, and we'll open up the chat for folks in the larger circle to share what gift they received or what need was met for them in the chat. And we'll and I'll read aloud 5 or 6 of them, and then you'll be able to read others on your own. So for me, what needs were met were uh, the wonder of Jerome's essential self really having a clear vision and a longing for good things. And I particularly have delight at Jerome's essential self saying, "Who, if not you, who?" Oh, and that's such an invitation to me in my experience of being in the world. So thank you. And I'll read to you here. I'll read 6 of these to you. Rima says, needs met and gifts received for hiding so that I'm not a bother to both my parents. Ara says, needs met for beauty, joy, humanity. Deneb says, joyous release. Yulia says, need met for seeing the convenience of my invisibility. Jaya says, needs met for delight and palpable and meaningful reorientation and beauty. And Tanya writes, a gift of MJ's delight at resolving Dad's worldview. So wonderful. And then there are many more that you'll get to read on your own. MJ, is there anything else that you would like to say before we transition?
No, thank you. Yeah, it's very, I just gratitude. Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
Thank you.
thank you. All right. And we'll stop for a couple of questions, and then we'll go back and do a second process tonight. We'll pull someone else out of the lottery. And Jaya, do you have a question or two that you'd like to?
I do. And just letting folks know, you're welcome to send me your question privately if it feels too vulnerable to put it in the chat.
Yeah.
I received a couple, but I'll just pull one of them out and then you can go back to the chat.
Okay.
What if the father has a very scary worldview, as seen in supporting Trump, and that unconscious internalized father becomes very scary too? What do we do?
Oh, this is such a good question. What we want to do is start with getting our small self to safety. And it could be our 3-year-old self in relationship to our father's scary worldview, or if our father only recently turned to Fox News and Trump, then there would be the moment of discovery of sort of losing him to that worldview, and we'd have to go to that moment and catch you and catch your nervous system with time travel resonance to stop time, to put your father in a golden floating bubble, to put Trump and all of the world of this strange experience we're having politically these days into golden floating bubbles, so that if suddenly we have a safe world to be with you in, and giving you resonant guesses and responses to the experience of the terror of someone who's so important to us having such a different idea of morality than maybe even what they raised us with. So there's so many places where there's loss and disorientation and frightening experiences that we get to hold together in order to begin to bring your nervous system to a slightly calmer place where your safety was no longer dependent upon your father's worldview, even just for a moment. And then begin to build from there. And there might be contracts involved, contracts of loyalty that could be very confusing. Like I will stay with my father no matter what he believes in order to make sure that he's not alone, no matter the cost to myself, for example. This kind of contract would then kind of be tearing us apart in terms of what our integrity might be calling for and what the other worldview might be asking of us. Maybe this person can let you know. Yeah. And then,
Great that it helps. Thank you, Sarah.
okay. Mary Clark writes at 6:32, what my primary parent did, my primary parent did both nurturing and thinking about my roles in the outside world and what activities might be valuable. So my mom had to do all the roles, both mom and dad, and the secondary parent traveled for work a lot and was sort of a guest family member. That seems like a very important insight. And Mary Clark says that is what if one parent did both roles and the other was only there intermittently. Then we'd want to be working with the contracts with the primary parent who was also the secondary parent. And then we'd see if there was anything else that came from the secondary parent that was important, but we'd be really focused on that primary parent for both parent one and parent two contracts and roles. Yeah. And Norbert says, what do you mean by resonance in this context? And by resonance, I mean language that's specifically shown by research to awaken the right hemisphere. Metaphors, feelings and needs, body sensations, impossible dream guesses. And Norbert, you just saw me working with MJ. And so you probably saw some of these things happening in the work that we did together. And so let me check back in with Jaya. Jaya,
I just have some more questions if you would like them, Sarah.
let's take another question and then let's do our next process.
Sure. Someone writes, can you please say more about the difference between the father leaving or being emotionally unavailable and him dying when his oldest daughter was 12? Sort of, is there something there?
Oh, just immense tenderness, immense tenderness. It's almost like if the father goes and doesn't die but is gone, then there's this huge sense of betrayal and not mattering that we have to work with. And if the father dies, then there's a sense of enormous loss, but possibly less of a sense of betrayal and of not mattering. Although we can be pretty darned mad at the people who die too, and have a sense that they've left us and that we didn't mean enough for them to stay with us. For example, if a family member dies of alcoholism, we can have this sense of that they didn't care enough about us to heal their addiction, for example. So there are, for each person in each situation, there will be different unfoldings and different pieces of work that need to be done that are not dependent on a formula that's connected to the parent and what happened with the parent, but is rather connected with what was the impact of this event on the child. And what is the child up against? What is the child struggling with? How can we use this material and these processes to help somebody no matter what the situation is. And we really depend entirely on what the person who's receiving the process work is telling us about their experience. Okay, Jaya, let's that person can let you know if that was if there's more there. They may have more of the question. But who is our next person?
The next person to come out is Fred.
Oh, Fred. What a pleasure to see you, Fred. And I'll ask you to, there you go. You're off mute.
I was so sure I would not be chosen.
Oh, interesting. Well, I'm so delighted.
Yeah.
Ah. What's it been like to be on the call this evening, and what has been coming to you?
Well, particularly during MJ's process, a lot was coming up about what it must have been like for my dad to grow up.
Oh,
I was born in 1916, so he grew up in the Depression. Um, the Holocaust was horrible in general, not for his relatives. He had four brothers in the army, and he went into the police work. He was the only, there were eight, he had seven siblings. And I've been told he was the one, even as an adult, who was the one that family came to solve problems when they needed help. But I didn't experience him as, I have memory, I've seen pictures of me when I was a baby and him looking at me with this love.
oh,
He played with me a lot,
oh,
but he was an athlete. I mean, the jock in high school on every team.
oh,
And I was the uncoordinated one chosen last.
oh,
And, it took me a long time to realize, but I was gay.
oh,
I mean, I did not, I was feeling how much of a disappointment I must have been
oh,
not meeting his expectations for
oh,
his son, his
oh,
loving expectations for his son.
mm.
Oh, I had no idea I had this much emotion about it.
Oh, it brings tears to my eyes. The
Yeah,
the bigness of what we're with. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And his parents were immigrants in the
Uh,
early 1900s. Or,
so let's find out what his,
okay, let's go.
let's find out what's his first name.
Frank.
Frank. So if we,
And for some reason, Sarah, when I introduce myself as Fred, people often hear Frank.
oh, interesting. Oh,
Yeah.
oh. So, let's find out what Frank's contract was. I will see my son Fred as uh, awkward and
Awkward.
vulnerable.
That's, wow. I noticed I just closed down with the question. So let
Oh,
me think
oh,
about it. Like,
yeah. You get to be Fred. I mean, you get to be Frank. You get to be
yeah,
Frank and feel into what, how does he see Fred and what's his in order to?
wow. As a what's coming up as a disappointment in somebody. I mean, he did a lot with me, but in some way, not understandable. I can't
Uh,
understand him,
uh,
and not available in the full way a dad interacts with the son.
Frank is saying, I will see my son Fred as a disappointment and not understandable and not available for the father-son relationship.
Yeah, because that would primarily be in the physical sports.
Ah,
Yeah.
ah.
Wow.
I will see Fred this way in order to.
In order to protect myself from feeling like a failure.
In order to protect myself from feeling like a failure
Yeah, feeling like a failure as a father.
as a father, no matter the cost to Fred.
That's hard to say
Yeah, yeah.
because I know he cared about me.
So
Yeah.
if we check with his essential self, is it easy to find his essential self when you say, I know he cared about me? It's sort of the central, most untraumatized core of his being.
It's a deep dive to his
Yes, of course.
central self.
Yes, yes. Well, his family came to him to fix things. They knew they could depend upon him.
Yeah,
They knew they could rely on his love.
yeah. Th- Well, as you say that, there's also a part of the in order to, it's almost like a relief to not have to interact on an emotional level.
Um, that it was a relief that if he could sort of
Yeah,
turn away from you somewhat, then he wouldn't have to work with his emotions. He wouldn't have to interact on an
yeah, yeah.
level. So it kept him from coming to pieces.
Um, he was not available emotionally to my mother also.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. So
So
then,
why would they be? There's some safety thing in his non-availability.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So he was born in 1916. He was born to a family of 8 children. His parents were immigrants. And I wonder if he mastered his world by physically being its
Yeah,
sort of being the boss of the world.
yeah. But not like a negative connotation of a boss.
No, no, somehow he was a manager. He was a very, very good
Yeah, yeah.
his body and of the world.
And a teacher.
Uh-huh.
I mean, he taught me about astronomy, about swimming and
Oh,
baseball, and take me to museums.
oh, wow,
Yeah,
wow. Makes my heart ache with tenderness for the complexity that he was trying
yeah,
to manage. Yeah.
yeah. His emotions growing up must have been overwhelming.
Oh, I imagine so.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah. Better not to have them, huh?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. So as we name this, is his essential self becoming a little bit more of a whisper of
yeah,
can feel?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's like a shining light I'm seeing now.
Oh, so we want to ask that shining light, essential self of Frank. Did you hear the vow that Frank made to find Fred a disappointment in order to manage his life and continue to have no emotions? Did you hear that contract?
Yes,
And,
yes,
and how do you feel about it, essential self of Frank?
sad.
Okay. Would you like to posthumously release Frank from the
Yeah,
contract?
after hitting you over the head, you got you. You made the wrong decision. Yes, release him,
And revoke this contract
revoke the contract.
and instead give him the blessing to see Fred
Oh, as a wondrous human being.
uh, uh,
Yeah,
yeah.
you're like two lights. We're two lights.
Mm,
He
wow.
didn't know how to express his love. It's a part of it. So yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
yeah. Oh,
Mm.
thank you, Sarah.
Oh, goodness, thank you, Fred. Does this feel like a complete place right here?
Yeah,
Okay. I'll tell you a need that was met for me, and we'll open up the chat again and get some needs met for you, if that's okay, from the circle. Is that all right?
yes.
Okay. So, for me,
So I'm curious about the other contract
oh,
you
yes, we
made.
can do that. Yeah.
Yeah,
How did your father see the world? I, Frank, solemnly swear to my essential self to see the world as
it's like a by thing. Curious,
like a black and white.
not black and white, but like he's curious. I
Uh,
know that. He went to college. I could see he was more aware of social differences and
you're telling me good things about him and his.
right. And on the other side is something he has to protect his family from.
Oh,
A
very.
policeman, after all.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah,
He knew a lot about what needed to be protected against.
yeah,
Yeah, I, Frank, solemnly swear to my essential self to see the world as a dangerous place that I must protect my family from.
yeah.
I will see it this way in order to.
I guess the protect the family is well, this is a contract he made earlier in order to be safe.
In order to be safe. And is there anything about anti-Semitism that needs to,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, in a world that is rife with anti-Semitism?
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, to make sense of the evils of the human race a little bit.
yeah.
Yeah, to live in a world where the human race can do anything,
Yeah.
no matter the cost to myself and my family.
No matter the cost to myself and my family.
Yeah, and while it is true that the world it can be a dangerous place, it's not.
I'm shaking.
Yeah, it's not just a dangerous place. So we want to check with Frank's essential self again and find out how he feels about the finality of that pronouncement, or whether he would like Frank to have a more complex view of the world?
Um, well, the first thing is sort of thank goodness he made that contract as a kid.
Yeah, yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And then he did
Eh,
a lot of really effective protecting.
yeah. Yeah. And then give me the question again
Yeah.
about the
So essential self of Frank,
um,
do you want this pronouncement about the world to be this definitive and final?
no, 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 it's painful. I
Like,
mean, for free as Frank, that's painful.
yeah, yeah. So then I release you from this contract, I revoke this vow, and instead I give you my blessing, Frank, to see the world as
Full of love,
full of love. Oh my goodness.
and that you're lovable.
Oh, oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
oh, yeah. Oh, so we'll let Frank and his essential self go, and we'll find out how his friend doing.
Oh, that is such wrung out
Oh,
in
okay. We'll
a good way.
replenish you a little with some needs met and gifts received.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I have needs met and gifts received for just makes me cry that your dad did all those things that he taught you about astronomy and took you to the museums and just
And baseball games.
and baseball games. What a wonder. Just a delight to meet him across
Yeah.
space. And Hummingbird Jane writes, I'll read you 6 of these and then you can read the others 3.
Yeah.
Hummingbird Jane says, a Fred, gift received of so much love being named between a father and son, and such complexity in surviving together. And Nandini writes, my inspired my need for vulnerability and authenticity. And Christy writes, needs met for sweet honesty, care for self, and compassion for the complexity of a father navigating his role in the world the best he can, given societal expectations and the dangers of the time, and getting to see both as shining lights of love. And Lali writes, Fred, gift of shared experience, celebration of spoken affirmation of our fathers, so ahead of their time and so bereft of the support necessary to support and protect and guide us, their children, in ways we all would have enjoyed and benefited from. And so it is. And Amy says, gift received of witnessing tenderly supported healing. And Val says, needs met for the wisdom of seeing father and son as the shining light they both are. And Rob says, needs met of being a wondrous being and sharing love and resonance with being picked last on the team. Yeah. There are many, many more here, Fred,
Oh,
for you.
thank you.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you, thank you, thank you.
And is there anything else that you'd like to say? Are you complete in this moment?
This is very much needed.
Oh, I'm so glad.
Yeah, yeah.
Very glad. Yeah. Mm, thank you. And so now we'll come back to some of the questions that were in the chat. 6:30. And any other questions that have been sent to Jaya and so on. Scrolling back up to 6:35, whereas the last question that I answered. Kintry writes, my father has OCPD. Can you talk about fathers with cluster B personality disorders? Kintry, I don't know what OCPD or cluster B are. Is it obsessive compulsive? with OC. So maybe you can put in the chat, Kintry, what the diagnosis was, with the fully written out, and that'll help me. And Monica writes, how does the broken field relate to the concept of inner child? Well, in a way, the inner child is the amygdala where all of our unprocessed experiences live that need to be held. And so the broken field is one of the trauma points that an inner child is left trying to carry and integrate. Monica, you can let me know if that is a helpful response. E says, we did that one. We did the question about Trump and scariness. Adrian says, if a father was never present, does the child inherently have a genetic worldview from the father? The latest research says yes, but they still don't know how it's transmitted. But they find that there is a genetic influence on how little, for example, mice see the world based on the experiences that their fathers had, even if they've never had any interaction with their father at all. So we can infer then that the same is true for humans. And Jaya, hello.
Hi, I have several questions, so let's kind of ping pong back and forth, if that works for you.
Of course.
Someone says, can you please share more about the context of the broken father field and being bullied?
Well, first of all, in terms of being bullied, there can be an imprint from father or mother or siblings of the child being scapegoated in the family, and then that being replicated in the outer world. That's one possibility. But there's also the work of Martin Teicher, which shows that pure verbal abuse lands in the brain and scars the brain in a different place than parental verbal abuse. And of course, bullying often has physical and even sexual components to it in terms of abuse. But there can be a broken classroom field. There can be a broken peer group field. There can be a broken bully field. Whoever the bully is can have a broken field where they're using their contempt of the receiver of the bullying to stabilize themselves. And we can work with those contracts separately from the broken field contracts of the parents. I had the experience of having a very intense bullying happen when I was in first grade, and my bully was in sixth grade. And my bully would harm me every day after school, and all of the children would close around and make a protective circle so that the bullying could not be seen. And when I did all of the contracts that I could find connected with this, there were extraordinary contracts that had to do with the absolute incapacity of the adults in our world to take care of us. The degree to which these children, the child who hurt me, the children who were closing around me, and I also myself lived in a world that was like Lord of the Flies, where there was no support or protection from the adults around us, not from each other, not from ourselves. And so that work can be also extraordinarily important and freeing, as well as working with broken father field and the way that has to do with the child having been bullied or scapegoated by the father, and those contracts needing to be worked with. So this person can let us know, Jaya. Yeah.
Yeah.
Shall I go to one in the chat?
Sure, and then you can come back to me. I've got plenty.
Good. Kelly writes, I would love to know how to break a cycle of contempt coming from my sibling, who is 12 years younger. We have different dads, but my sibling's dad showed up for me when I was a kid as best he could because my biological father was absent until I was 30. So we want to know, it may not be possible to break the cycle of contempt because your sibling who is 12 years younger is using that contempt to self-regulate themselves. So there's, in some way, they're responding to some element of their own trauma, a missing mother, jealousy about your relationship with their father. We don't know. But what we want to do is create for you a responsiveness and a holding and an acknowledgement of the painfulness of this cycle and begin to give your nervous system all of the support that it needs to function well despite this painful cycle. And then go ahead, Jaya, what's the next question for you? And Kelly, you're welcome to write some more in the chat as you listen to my answers, and more questions may come up, and you just write them in and we'll come around to them.
Someone writes, what about a mother who did caretaking, cooking, cleaning, etc., but was not emotionally nurturing? My father was emotionally nurturing, but not usually home. Would I consider him both mother and father?
You can probably work with both parents, with both mother and father. So what we would want to know is what happens for you? What are you up against? What are the difficult things for you? How do you treat yourself? Do you treat yourself with the warmth that your father had for you? Or do you treat yourself with the indifference and the careful, instrumental caretaking that you received from your mother? So when we start with the client, we don't have to ask, what do I do with each of my parents? We're looking for what's the pattern in the client, and then where does that show up in one or the other of the parents? And so we'll let that person respond about whether that was helpful too. And Nadine writes, for those who have stepfathers, I want to acknowledge the burden of having to carry the burden of two broken father fields. What a beautiful thing to make an observation about, Nadine. Thank you.
And that brings us, can I just circle in there with a question?
Oh, yeah.
Someone was wondering actually about stepfathers. Does a stepfather count as a father role, even if you're not emotionally close? And in fact, it was a very unsafe relationship.
Oh, well, if the stepfather was an unsafe figure, then we know that there's trauma work to be done. So we want to do time travels to the little self we were that had to live with that dangerous person. And we don't know how much that person stamped you until you begin to work with your issues and see whether there are any tendrils that go out into the stepfather. I hope that this is starting to make some sense for people, that we're not working from the parent in, we're working from the person out. Yeah. And Robin writes, I have a stepfather and I see him as helping to heal the first broken father field. What beauty. And Nadine says, interesting, thanks for your insight. Robin says, I'm sure there are some issues to heal there as well, but I don't know how Sarah would view it or how it would fit that context. Again, we'd be working with you with the question of how do you see the world and who influenced the way you see the world. So now I'll just move down to the next area of questions. Lots of wonderful needs met here. Oh, my beloved foster Chihuahua is here. Oh my God. And then Alice writes, I think my father was profoundly disillusioned with and traumatized by the world he grew up in, Second World War, British boarding school, etc., but he didn't know how to get anywhere different. Then we'd want to look at the way that he perceived the world, Alice. And Jaya, is there another question that you're holding?
Yeah. Someone wonders about, can you speak about father's inability to keep a job or make money and
Oh,
its influence this person experiences the child then also, that they as a child often struggle to make money and hold a job?
yeah, yeah, absolutely. So there's a couple of different contracts we want to look at. We want to look at the way this can be very transgenerational. So was the grandfather successful? Because if the grandfather was successful and saw the father with contempt, then we'd actually want to start with the grandfather's contract to see the father with contempt. If the grandfather was also not successful, we want to see if we know anything about the generation before that and what kind of collective trauma impacted this family and what kind of ancestral clearing might be needed to support this family line. What kind of contracts still live in us? For example, to be loyal to a father who can't, who doesn't find a good interface with the world. I, Sarah, solemnly swear to my essential self that I will not be successful in order to, in order to stay with my father, who was only very modestly successful in a world that outstripped him. No matter the cost to myself. Then I would want to release that contract of loyalty because my father my father died 15 years ago. My sense of my father is that he would want me to be successful. So we want to know like these things. And if the father doesn't want you to be successful, then there's a broken father contract in the way he sees you. So that felt just like I was maybe becoming confusing. So please let me know if that was helpful at all. And Tanya and Adam say, what if the father goes missing during the war and is never found again or never returns? And then there's just so much to hold in terms of tenderness and worry and love and abandonment and the way that we'll protect ourselves against sudden loss and not love anybody or not fully open our hearts in order to protect ourselves from the devastation of the loss. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, Jaya, over to you.
Sorry, I was adding a new one to the list, but I'm gonna revisit. And someone says, Sarah, can you speak to living in a scary environment where a child was beaten as soon as she was not doing what was expected of her? There were high expectations, and they were not always spelled out clearly.
Oh my God. Well, we'd want to get some good time travels into that little one because she's living in a world that's not really very livable. There's an awful lot of double binds there, and we'd have to make lots of contracts to try to be vigilant and to try to be good, and eventually to not try to be good at all in order to not have to have the heartbreak of constant failure. So there's layers and layers of work to do with those betrayals of trust and protection that were supposed to be coming from the father and did not. Yeah. Yeah. And then uh there's two things that come back to the question that was earlier about OCPD. Newton says it is obsessive compulsive personality disorder. And Sarah Dan writes, cluster B is the major personality disorder category of the DSM, and narcissism is the most popular one. So what we know there is that we would want to work with the way that the father perceived the world. this father, solemnly swear to my essential self that I will perceive the world as scarce, dangerous, out of control. And I will believe it is this way in order to make sense of my brain's OCPD, no matter the cost to my child, no matter the cost to my family, no matter the cost to myself. And then we'd see if we could find the essential self of the father to be able to release this contract. Sometimes it takes some years to find the essential self of a difficult parent. Sometimes we would never find the essential self of a difficult parent. Sometimes people have been too obliterated by trauma or too obliterated by brain disorders, like the disorder that comes with OCD, and and we're left sort of standing with our head in our hands, bowing to the fate of our difficult parents, and letting go of this particular avenue of having the essential self of the parent release the contract. Instead, we can begin to work with a sense of the divine releasing the contract on behalf of the difficult parent, or nature, or a sense of our own essential self having the strength to hold what's gone before and the truth of it, and to acknowledge its impact, and to free ourselves from the loyalty to those wounds. So that's the direction that we go in here. And then I'll come back to Jaya and check. Do you have any more questions, Jaya?
I do. Someone was wondering about how do we work with having an emotionally absent father because of his trauma?
Yeah, we do this work that we've been looking at tonight. Yeah, that's how we do. It's exactly what we do. Is how did our father treat us? How did he see us? Does his essential self want to release that seeing? Yeah, we've exactly been learning and working with this material tonight. In addition, there's a follow-up class to this free session that happens starting in February on Tuesday mornings at 10:30 a.m. Pacific time, and goes for an hour and a half. Basically, it goes for 85 minutes, so that we have a little bit of transition time. But it's called Lifting the Father's Shadow. And in this class, we'll be working with the material that we have worked with tonight in this webinar. And we'll go beyond what we've done tonight in this webinar. We'll look at the ways that we prevent ourselves from providing for ourselves. We'll look at the ways that we prevent ourselves from protecting ourselves. We'll look at the ways that we don't allow ourselves time, space, and resources for play. We'll learn about loyalties. We'll think about the father's line. We'll do so many beautiful things. I hope you will join us for the follow-up class, which we don't have on the website yet, but we'll be sending out an email to all of you about as soon as we get it up. And it will tell you about Lifting the Father's Shadow, February 10 to March 24, Tuesdays, 10:30 a.m. Pacific time. And then let me get back. Jaya, do you have another one?
I do. Sarah, I want to check with you. Are you comfortable speaking about sexual abuse and incest?
Yes, if we just let everybody know that it's going to be spoken about, and then if you want to turn off the sound, you can, and we'll wave our hands like this when we're done.
Okay. So this upcoming question will be related. There's two questions related to it. So I'll start with one. So if you're not comfortable listening, you can turn off your sound, and Sarah will wave when she's done. So you can just take a break if it's not comfortable for you. Someone's wondering, can this process be effective for healing from incest when the child has been used as a surrogate?
100% yes. Absolutely. So the father's contract or the mother's contract, if the mother was the abuser, would be I, parent, solemnly swear to my essential self to use my child as a sexual object in order to, and then there'll be all kinds of in order to's. Yeah. All kinds of workarounds for trauma and incapacity and shame and reliving their own abuse. There's all kinds of in order to's. And then there may also be, you know, how we have that contract that the father has to see the world in a certain way. There may also be a contract to see women and women's bodies as property. And I, Father, solemnly swear to my essential self to see women's bodies as property and as belonging to me as the man. I will believe this in order to remain loyal to patriarchy and to um, and to claim the compensatory privilege of being male in exchange for my soul, no matter the cost to myself and my child. And we want to check with the essential self and see if the essential self likes that. Most often, essential selves are not particularly happy with those vows that men have to commit themselves to patriarchy. Essential self wants something much bigger for us than for us to be slaves to patriarchy. But that piece of work also needs to be done in terms of working with sexual abuse. And I'll just wave my hands there, and that person's welcome to ask a follow-up question. Or is it
One more question about incest.
okay? Forget that. I'm retracting my waving hands.
I'm sorry. I just figured we should maybe bundle these together.
Sure.
So just giving people a moment to turn back off the sound if that was their preference.
Yeah.
Oh. So this person had a male biological parent that was nurturing when they were an infant and then sexually violating them and other children at a certain age. So just wondering, does that, they said, sorry, does that shift them from mother to father, or is that in a way an incestual relationship with the mother? And can parents shift roles over time?
Yes, they can. They can shift roles and attachment styles, and it can be quite confusing. um, and then the vows of loyalty can be so profound when the person was the primary caregiver and so nurturing when people were babies, and then things go wrong and the person becomes abusive, and then there's this intense vow of love and loyalty that just really ties our nervous system up with sticky tape. And so we get to do the resonant response to the little ones who are living through the sticky trauma. Is still in the present time because of the way the amygdala has no sense of time. So we do the time travels and begin to name the complexities and the layers and to guess about how it was to be with these complexities and layers. And as we do that, then the nervous system and the body begin to calm. Another very essential element of healing from sexual abuse and assault is to work with the cells of the vagina, the anus, the mouth, the hands, whatever had to be touched in ways that were unwelcome and violating, and to be able to reclaim for ourselves our innocence, because the perpetrator is the one who bears the burden of the sexual abuse and assault. And we we don't have to carry it. We get to say, not mine. That touch was your touch. It was not my choice. It was not what I wanted. It was not mine. And sometimes there are those complexities where the only kind of love and attention that a child gets is sexual abuse. And then there's the sorting out of those strands and nuances of, but what if I did want to be, I wanted to be seen by someone. At least with sexual abuse, I was seen by someone. That's really important to acknowledge too, that can be a part of it. And then we still get to go back towards innocence, because children starve without attention. They have to have attention in order to live. So there's it's sort of, as we begin to do this with neuroscience in mind, we open ourselves to healing and to the reclamation of innocence, no matter what evolved. Yeah. And I'll wave my hands again. Yeah. Okay. All right. And Kathleen C. at 726 wrote, how do you ease the pain from contempt in the essential contract? Oh, you do a time travel to the little one who had to live with that contempt. And you catch the body sensations and the stopping breathing and the heart stopping beating and the intense, painful flow of cortisol, and you acknowledge it all and wonder about how it was for the child to receive these things. And as we create accompaniment and resonance in the moment of memory, we begin to change the way that we hold pain. And Carrie G asked, what is the name of the researcher on bullying? And the name of the researcher is Martin Teicher, and I put that into the chat. Kelly says, so if I'm hearing right, my sibling, non-binary, who is 12 years younger and has a different father, has contempt for me and uses me as a scapegoat in order to regulate their own system. Yes, exactly. Exactly, Kelly. Not so fun. Just want to acknowledge the painfulness of that. Beltran, how to help a child who was physically abused and beaten up by the father when he was very young, 1 year old or 18 months, and later as well. The divorced father left the family and had toxic verbal business about the mother in front of the child. So the child becomes a broken teenager full of rage and has self-harm behaviors and suppresses the anger, sometimes exploding when being triggered by being bullied at school. Even though the mother and the stepmother try many ways to help the kid, the wound by the biological father was too strong. Oh, very hard. Very, very hard. If you live somewhere where there are people doing guided psilocybin journeys, or guided ketamine work, the hallucinogens can sometimes be very supportive for healing and helping with this stuff. Another brain spotting might be a possibility. You're going to need to experiment with what the child's willing to experiment with and what they're willing to receive. And Susan writes, my life felt very similar to MJ's, hiding from an early age. However, I have 4 younger sisters who have a very different experience and speak so highly of their relationships with him. I ended up rebelling. Can you shed any light on this, having the same father in the same home with such a different experience? I think if you did the unconscious contract work, the broken field work of why he's scapegoating you, then you might begin to discover what the contract is and what's there. Because this is a scapegoating pattern. When one child has a very different experience of the parent than the other children. And in scapegoating, the people who aren't being scapegoated don't see the pattern and they just think that the child who's being scapegoated is wrong. So it's a very big, important thing to acknowledge the painfulness and the difficulty, and to begin to work with it. Yeah. Yeah. So, and there's a comment here. Why doesn't Sarah, the workshop leader, know these acronyms for mental health disease? I didn't do the opening caveat for all of you. I am not a therapist. I'm a neuroscience educator, and I think deeply about trauma. I don't think deeply about diagnoses. I want to know what's happening with the person and what the effect is and what the generational stuff could be that could be impacting a person. So that's the reason I don't know the mental health acronyms and diagnoses. And Vera says, what if a father is hiding the love for one kid from the mother and the other siblings because he was afraid of their jealousy? Beautiful, beautiful guess, Vera. Yes, then we'd want to release that broken field contract. And Jaya, please.
Yeah. Someone writes, I wonder if it's accurate to frame the parent's pattern as a contract. Could it not also just be a coping mechanism and strategy to help themselves, but not a contract? Is there a difference if it is a contract?
Yeah, the difference is how compulsive is it? Does it happen all the time or only just once in a while? If only just once in a while, it's a coping strategy. If it's a rigid response that happens all the time, it's a contract. And Jacinth says, what about a scary environment with no protection, no play, where a child was beaten as soon as she was not doing what was expected of her? We got to answer this one. Jaya asked it about this one. Asked about this. And Kelly writes, Sarah, would you please give me a few examples of how to regulate my nervous system when I am on the receiving end of contempt from my sibling? Oh, so there you are, Kelly. Your sibling says, well, la-di-da, of course you wouldn't think of such a thing. And you go, oh, contempt. Yeah. And so you could say, you can go in the direction of expression where you can say, hey, sibling, the asymmetrical facial expression and the downward tone at the end of your voice indicate that there's contempt. Is there something that you'd actually like to say to me? You can go that direction. You can, which is an expression direction for self-regulation. You can also just be quiet, and inside of yourself, you can say, oh, Kelly, would you love some acknowledgement that this is so painful and so unnecessary? And just, do you need some acknowledgement of exhaustion, of fatigue, of boredom, of hopelessness, do you need would it be sweet if somebody understood how much effort you've put into trying to change this relationship? Do you need any acknowledgement that your stomach hurts and it gives you a headache? Do you want to get out and never have to cross paths with this person again, but they're part of your family and you have to see them all the time? Do you need choice? Do you need respect? Do you love dignity? So these are some examples, Kelly, of a starting point. And David Smith says, of course, as a father, my mind immediately goes to wondering what my children's demos would sound like in 10 years with Sarah. Something that's really sweet that we can do as parents is to release our contracts to use our children. So we can say, I, Sarah, solemnly swear to my essential self to use my son Nick as an emotional support when his father is so ill in order not to feel alone in the world. And then we say, Sarah's essential self, good contract? Nope, not a good contract, Sarah. I release you from this contract. I revoke this vow. And then all of a sudden there's more room and freedom and breathing and less of a tendency to use our children to support ourselves. Kelly says, Sarah, could you please differentiate between the difference of being scapegoated and being a victim? I feel as though I'm being scapegoated, but I'm sure that my sibling sees me as having victim mentality. And victim is not a word that I use, Kelly. I just don't use it at all. Yeah. So, I mean, I think if you're, I think that you giving us this quote that your sibling sees you as having victim mentality is another example of their contempt. And so then you could do your siblings' self-regulation contract, and that might help too. I, Kelly's sibling, solemnly swear to my essential self to see Kelly as having victim mentality in order not to have to take responsibility for my own contempt and predatory aggression, no matter the cost to Kelly. That might be a sweet one to do. Jaya, you have a hand raised.
Yeah, I just was going to bring forward one more question. I have two more on my list, but someone asks if you're willing to speak to where the birth father and mother gave up the newborn to another stranger parents, and the adopted father only had eyes for the daughter and not his wife. I don't fully understand it, but maybe you do.
Then we'd want to know what's the father's broken field contract that I, father, solemnly swear to only see my child and not my wife in order to, and then we'd find out what it was as we began to dig in. Yeah. And Lisa says, what if there were mixed messages from father about being successful? Be successful, but don't show off, for example. Yeah. What a good what a good question. What a good piece of work. I mean, it's the father has either two vows or a mixed vow. And it might be about how the father sees the world rather than about how the father sees the child. Yeah. So there might be a vow to believe that women should be seen and not heard or something as part of their loyalty to patriarchy. And then the father might simultaneously long for their child to be successful despite their own internal prohibitions. So we're starting to wander through the complex brains of our parents as we do this work. Yeah. 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 And Dory left. Okay. And then Joanne says, what about if the father has a narcissistic personality disorder? Same thing. We just do the same thing. The diagnoses and do not matter with this work. Yeah. Yeah. Adrian says, what do you do if the essential self of the parent does not want to release the contract? That means, Adrian, that we haven't reached the essential self usually, or that there's extreme trauma in the parent's life or the grandparent's life that we have not yet named and acknowledged. So it does happen, but what it means is that there's more work to do to get to the essential self, the true essential self of the parent. And Lena just reveals her history and just names the PTSD that comes from it. Absolutely. Absolutely. And let's see, Aaron is gone. And Kintry is gone. And then there's tenderness and appreciation from Carolyn. And expression of pain from Cynthia. And David Smith says, I release my contract to send my kids to do a session with Sarah in 10 years. Oh, yeah. And folks talking about the DSM. And then Sarah asked a question but left. And Jaya answered. Thank you, Jaya, for answering that one. Oh, thank you. So wonderful to be with you all. Thank you for your presence, Jaya. Thank you very much for tracking questions and helping people ask in ways that feel private. And Jaya, is there anything else you'd like to say before we let people know they can say goodbye to us?
Yeah, just wanting to invite folks that if you're curious about the Lifting the Father's Shadow course, we'll probably send something out to you via email. It's Tuesdays at 10:30 starting in February. So if that's something that's of interest, and I'll also put, you can go to sarahpayton.com and click on classes for other options, for other ways to stay connected. If that particular timing isn't one that works for you, there might be something else you might enjoy.
And Dory says, how long are those class sessions? They go for 85 minutes, Dory, from 10:30 to 11:55. And thank you to David and thank you to everyone. If you'd like to come off mute and say goodbye, we can let everybody off mute, right, Jaya?
And if you go off mute, just know you might end up in the chorus at the end of the YouTube. So you can just decide if that's something.
Yeah, just stay on mute if you're worried about it showing up on YouTube. But if you don't mind, then come off and we'd love to hear your voices saying goodbye. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.
Happy holidays, everyone.
Thank you so much.
I love you guys.
Happy holidays.
Thank you, Jaya. Thank you, Sarah.
Wonderful gift.
Thank you.